is the details of that second one that was we saw in comparison. It shows what the on page 22 what the net expense was for each of the departments. Total expense of $16.4 million. And if you turn to the next page, the $16.4 million then is offset by $20.2 million of income from your property taxes, your franchise taxes, other fees, fines, and sale of assets for a change of $3.7 million and an ending position of $35.6. The component units had a $2.7 million change in net position and total net position 77.8. Page 24 and 25 is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. They're broken down between the funds of general fund, sanitation, landfill, and your other governmental funds. This is more of a cash basis or modified cash basis presentation. It's the old fund basis. It shows that your total assets was $14.4 million in the general fund, coming across to the total funds of $32.9. Your liabilities due within the next years, $2.7 in the general, or $6 million across all funds, and your fund balance was $11.7 million as compared to $26.8 million. Page 26 reconciles the two statements, the balance sheet and a statement net position. Page 27, 28 is the revenues on each of the funds. The total revenues was $22 million in the general, 6.2 in the sanitation, and 1.1 in the other funds, for a total 29.4. The expenditures was 20.9 in the general fund, coming across to 26.8 in the total funds. And then it shows what your excess or deficiency in each fund was there at the bottom, of $1 million excess in the general to 2.5 total. If you turn to page 29, that shows your other financing sources and uses of 2.7 in the general and $1 million in the total general funds. The change in fund balances totaled out to $3.5 million, and you have an ending fund balance of $26.8 million. Your next section on 32, 33, those are talking about the pension fund that you all funded yourself, which is almost complete. I think it'll be completed this year. And then page 34 and 35 is your component units information for the water company, electric plant board, and municipal airport, and how much assets they have, liabilities they have, and their total net position. Page 36 is the component units income and expenses, and shows what each of those component units. The water company had a income of $242,000, EPB had $2.2 million, and municipal airport had $291,000, for a total income of $2.7 for the component units. Okay, any questions on the financial statements? We'll turn to the next part is the notes to your financial statements. I am only going to point out a couple of notes for you. The first one is on page 51. 51 and 52 thereafter shows the capital assets, the assets that are owned by the city, what was added to them during the year, what was retired or sold, what the balance of it is, and then it shows the depreciation in the bottom part of that half going to the total. So you have total net assets or capital assets of $39.2 million for the city. Page 52, 53, 54 talk about your component units of water, sewer, and gas. Page 56 on 55, actually at the bottom, shows your long-term debt, which is the leases, what was increased or added to them, how much you paid on them, what's due within the next year. And on page 57 shows your bond. on the fact that it's 5.7 million or 5.6 million. You retired the 2012 this year, so you have outstanding $5 million and $170,000 is due within a year. Okay. If we'll skip now to we're going to skip to the budget because the rest of the notes deal with the pension from the state. We'll skip to page 84 and 85. This is laid out to show your original budget compared to your final budget after all amendments compared to your actual. So you budgeted for 20.6 million in revenues in the general fund. You actually got 22 million. You had a favorable of 1.3 million. You budgeted expenditures of 22.2 million. You actually expended only 20.9 million, which is a favorable variance of 1.2 million. You're budgeted for a deficiency of 1.5 million there. You actually had an excess of $1 million, and the favorable variance is 2.6. Your other financing sources budgeted for 2.6. You had 2.7, a favorable of 61,000, and you have a favorable ending variable of 2.7 million in the general fund. Page 86 is the landfill, and you budgeted for 6.7 million in revenues. You actually only got 6.2. That was unfavorable, 545,000. Your expenditures, you budgeted for 4.6. That was actually only 4.5. That's 125,000. And you're actually, you budgeted for $82,000 profit. You actually had a $338,000 loss in the landfill. Okay. The last things that I will go over with you is going to be the reports in the back on page 119. That report is their independent audit report on internal control and compliance in accordance with governmental auditing standards. That tells you that describes what a deficiency is, a significant deficiency, and material weakness is. There are none reported in this audit. There are no deficiencies or material weaknesses reported. It also describes what the compliance issues are. There are no compliance issues. That means you are in compliance with laws and regulations. Page 121 and 121 throughout the rest of it is to do with the federal programs and expenditures on the federal programs. There is no compliance issue. It means that you all complied with your federal grant requirements. There is no internal control issues noted as well on those. There's no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses on that. Page 124 summarizes what I just stated, that we express an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. There's no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses according to governmental auditing standards. There's no non-compliance. There's no significant deficiencies on the major programs. There's no compliance. We issued an unqualified opinion on compliance there, or unmodified. There are no audit findings to be reported. It tells which two programs we looked at of the federal programs that are considered major. It tells how we determined those two programs using $750,000. And it states that you did not qualify as a low-risk auditee, which, when you're dealing with that much federal money, you're not going to be a low-risk auditee. Okay. Any questions?
Questions for Jeff? It's prior to this meeting, the Finance Committee met and listened to the report from Jeff and from Jennifer, and we got the chance to ask questions. Terry Bennell is the chairman of the Finance Committee. Do you want to summarize that meeting, or do you want to, I just want everybody to have an opportunity to ask questions for Jeff. This is a very detailed operation for sure.
Mayor Royce, I will make a few comments on the Finance Committee. First of all, we appreciate working with Taylor Poston and Company again this year, and appreciate the staff that works with us from day to day in the finances of the city. If you look at our budget and then look at what our actuals were, we had a very good year. This was the first full year that we realized the increase in the occupational license fee. So you see the impact that's had in our budget. I will point out, as we did in the committee meeting, that we have some unrealized gain in our investment portfolio of about $1 million that impacted the budget. So that's a paper gain. So in actuality, that's not that's not in cash to go spend at the moment. So overall, I mean, the operation of the city was very good. It had a good excess, good revenue sources, a good management of funds from all the staff, buying equipment that we had to buy, retiring equipment that we needed to retire. We did exceed our budget, but that's a very good thing from the standpoint that we're very efficient in operating the city, and again, commend the department heads in running a good operation. But a big driver in this budget has been the occupational license fee, or payroll tax as we call it. So we appreciate everybody in the city making things happen for us and allowing us to be in this good financial footing. Thank you, Mayor.
Good comments. Other questions that might have developed as you reviewed this? All right, Jeff, go ahead.
Mayor, what I will say is if any member goes home, decides they do have questions, want to sit down with either of us, Jennifer or myself, and go over in detail, all they have to do is call us at Taylor Poston & Company. We'll schedule a time to sit down and go over this in detail. If we have to pull out the work papers and go over them, we'll do that. The other thing I'll make a quick mention of, usually you have a letter that is to you. That letter will be mailed to you as governance this year. It really says nothing. That it says the financial statements was clear and neutral. It's basically the same thing that I just went over in person with you, okay? And Mayor, I appreciate our working relationship. It's been a long time with the City of Glasgow.
Sure.
Hope we continue that relationship, and thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just ask your cohort, Jennifer, to stand up, and then Stephanie and Maddie to stand up. These three are almost blood sisters. By the time that we get this audit done, and we're glad to have them working together. This is a big operation, as you can tell just from the audit report. And Terry made a really good point that the particular department heads are very involved in helping keep up with the audit, plus making sure that we meet the budget. So there's a team effort up here, and thank you very much, Jeff, for all of the work that Taylor Poston does for us.
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, it's tax season, so we're not going to stick around.
That's fine. You can go. You can go.
Have a good day.
That's all right. Well, thanks a lot. All right. I guess we probably, do we want to accept the audit as presented? I will entertain a motion that we accept this audit as it was presented tonight.
Motion, Benel.
Okay. Is there
Second, Lowry.
second from Lowry? Okay. Any discussion? If not, then indicate if you're in favor or not by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, and the motion carries, and the audit is officially entered into the record. Let's move forward with some old business we need to consider. Rich?
This is the second reading of an ordinance permanently closing portions of the existing Ford Drive. That whereas on December 16th of 2022, the city sold and transferred certain property to the Barren County Public Properties Corporation for the purpose of constructing a new judicial center. Whereas part of the agreement between the city and the Properties Corporation was that certain portions of the public roads in and around the judicial center project would be closed as the project progressed, specifically portions of existing Ford Drive, which would revert back in fee simple to the Properties Corporation, who owns the property in or abutting the areas being closed as shown on the attached Exhibit A and highlighted in orange. Whereas pursuant to KRS 82.405, the Barren County Public Properties Corporation, being the only property owner in or abutting the public way to be closed, has consented to the closing of the public way, subject to the provision that all property contained within that public way being closed shall revert back to the Barren County Public Properties Corporation. Whereas an affidavit pursuant to KRS 82.405 sub 2 has been signed by the Barren County Judge Executive as agent for the property owner, a copy of which is attached as Exhibit B. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the city as follows. Section 1, pursuant to 82.405 sub 2 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, the following findings of fact are made. A, the Barren County Public Properties Corporation is the only property owner in or abutting the public way proposed to be closed. B, written notice of the proposed closing has been given to the aforesaid property owner. And C, the aforesaid property owner has given its consent to the closing as shown by Exhibit B. Section 2, the aforesaid public way known as Ford Drive and highlighted in orange on Exhibit A, attached hereto, is hereby ordered closed, subject to the following provisions. Fee simple absolute ownership of the property contained within that portion of the public way being closed shall revert back to the Barren County Public Properties Corporation according to the law of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
All right, you've heard the second reading of the ordinance. As you recall, this was passed on first reading. It's some work that needs to be done and run through the council with respect to the new Justice Center. And at this point, I will entertain a motion that we pass this ordinance on second reading.
Motion, Norris.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Okay, is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All right, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Marion,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Trigg,
Yes.
Witcher, Benel,
Yes.
Gaunt,
Yes, ma'am.
Kirkpatrick,
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry.
Yes.
All right, the ordinance is passed unanimously. We have another one to get second reading on. Rich?
This is the second reading of the ancillary ordinance that relates to Ford Drive. This is an ordinance that accepts the relocated Ford Drive as a city street. That whereas Jim McGowan, Superintendent of the Department of Public Works, has inspected the drawing for a relocated right-of-way which is 50 feet in width and containing 16,644 square feet more or less, as shown and designated in green on Exhibit A, which is designated as relocated Ford Drive for the inclusion as a city street in the city of Glasgow. And whereas the Superintendent of the Department of Public Works has determined that the proposed public way, if it meets and complies with standards of construction for streets in the city of Glasgow, should be included and accepted as a city street upon completion of the Judicial Center project. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the city as follows. Section 1, the relocated Ford Drive, being a right-of-way 50 feet in width, containing 16,648 square feet more or less, and designated in green on Exhibit A, shall be and hereby is accepted and approved as a city street on the condition that, when the Judicial Center project is complete, it shall comply with all standards of construction for streets in the city of Glasgow, as shown by a written report confirming same by the Superintendent of the Department of Public Works, which shall be filed with the city clerk. Section 2, once the Judicial Center project is complete and a written report by the Superintendent of Public Works has been filed with the clerk, confirming that the relocated Ford Drive in fact complies with all standards for construction, the relocated Ford Drive shall be deemed accepted as a city street, and the city shall be responsible for maintaining same. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
You've heard the second reading of this proposed ordinance. I'll entertain a motion that we pass the ordinance.
Motion, Benel.
Is there a second?
Second, Lowry.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, which means we can have discussion on this proposed ordinance if anybody has any discussion they would like to have on it. If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Marion,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Trigg,
Yes.
Witcher, Benel,
Yes.
Gaunt,
Yes, ma'am.
Kirkpatrick,
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry.
Yes.
The ordinance is passed, 100% voting yes. All right, we have one more under old business. Rich, if you want to bring us up to date there, sir.
This is the second reading of an ordinance that amends the city's Code of Ordinances, Section 110.27, increasing certain insurance premium fees assessed by the city of Glasgow. That whereas the city of Glasgow's Code of Ordinances, Section 110.27, currently assesses an insurance premium of 5% on every policy of insurance except life and health, which is currently at a fee of 2%. Whereas these established insurance fees have remained the same since their inception in 1966. Whereas the city's occupational license administrator has researched this issue across the Commonwealth of Kentucky and has determined the city of Glasgow, for its size and population, is extremely low in terms of its insurance premium fees. Whereas on February 20, 2024, the city's Finance Committee considered this issue and now recommends to the City Council that the insurance premium fees be increased such that the insurance premium fees now be 5% for all policies of insurance, including life and health. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow as follows. Section 1. The city's Code of Ordinances, Section 110.27, shall be and hereby is amended to read as follows. And I'll just attempt to summarize this for you without reading it verbatim. All insurance policies will be 5% across the board, except the life insurance policies. The 5% only applies to the first year's premiums actually collected within each calendar quarter by reason of the issuance of the policies. All other insurance policies will be subject to the 5% of the premiums actually paid, collected each calendar quarter by reason of the issuance of the policies on risks located within the city limits of Glasgow. All license fees imposed by this section shall be due no later than 30 days after the end of each calendar quarter, and the license fees which are not paid on or before the due date shall bear interest at the tax interest rate defined by law. Every insurance company subject to the license fees imposed by this section shall annually, by March 31st, furnish to the city a written breakdown of all the collections in the preceding calendar year for the following categories of insurance: casualty, automobile, inland marine, fire and allied perils, health, and life. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
All right, you have heard the second reading of the ordinance as proposed. At this point, I will entertain a motion that we pass the second reading of this ordinance.
Mayor, I would like to just add that, this ordinance is just affecting the small business, correct?
Let's get a motion. Let's get it up on the floor so we can discuss it, okay?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second by Lowry.
Okay, all right. Now, Councilman Mary, we're open for discussion.
I'm sorry. So this is just affecting the small business owners, does not affect, or small policies or individual. It's not group policies, correct?
That's correct. That is correct. And we have actually, Nick Hurt is here if you want to ask him any specific questions about that as we discuss it, because he's been the one that's been involved in this. If there are questions during the discussion phase that Nick might be able to answer. But you are right, Councilman Marion, in what you said about it just affects the individual policies and for a brief period of time.
And Mayor, if I might, I can, just for everyone's benefit, let me read that specific provision, and then Mr. Hurt can speak to that. But it says the premium receipts shall not include premiums received for insuring employers against liability for personal injuries to their employees or death caused thereby under the provisions of the Workers' Comp Act, and shall not include premiums on policies of group health insurance provided for state employees under KRS 18, or premiums paid to any self-funded health insurance program for state employees.
Okay. All right. Now, let's just continue with the discussion. Are there other questions about this on second reading about as we consider this?
Can you give us just a simple example of how this would affect somebody, just one person?
I can. I actually spent this afternoon looking, calling, meeting with some insurance companies because I wanted to be able to tell you exactly how it's going to affect citizens. And I won't tell who it's from. If you want to know, you can meet with me afterwards in my office. But I ran quotes on life insurance and on health insurance. I used the exact same parameters. The only thing that's different is I used Glasgow in one quote, and then I used another tax jurisdiction in the other quote. The other jurisdiction is at 7%, where we're at 2%. The premiums on both are exactly the same. So therefore, it's not going to change. What this whole ordinance charges a fee to the insurance company. It's not charging the customer. It charges the insurance company for them a fee to do business within the city limits. Now, I can't speak to every insurance company and say they won't pass it down, because there's over 3,000 insurance companies that we deal with, that I receive money from quarterly. But I can tell you this, the ones that I ran were some of the biggest in the state. I wanted to make sure, because I know that if the biggest ones, from my background in insurance, if the biggest ones are doing this, the others will follow suit.
All right. Questions?
I'd just like to let the council know, Mayor, and the citizens of Glasgow, that when we look at our budget for our general fund, for our license and permits, that this portion of that section of the general budget makes up about 13%. And this is all fees on all insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, you got to keep that in perspective with what we do in the occupational license fee, and it's about 63%,
Right.
commonly called the payroll tax. And so, when Nick first started looking at this, and Stephanie, we were looking at, and myself we were looking for ways to diversify this revenue source, because having a large portion of our license and permits coming from the occupational license fee, or quote, payroll tax, can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because we put a lot on to our workers within the city of Glasgow. So we're looking to diversify this section of our budget, looking for additional revenue streams, and being additional revenue stream that is fair to everyone. We're trying to be fair, not equal, never be equal, but we want to be fair with it and trying to be across the board with it. And Nick spent some time comparing it to other cities across the Commonwealth, and we're low, comparatively speaking. Now, we're not in the business to compare ourselves to someone particularly, but we want to be fair with it, to the citizens. And so what I want the council to know in the general population is that, we're trying to look at tax revenue that is across the board, spreads out, and I'm going to call it the risk of paying taxes, that we don't put it all over here in one bucket. We try to spread it out in several buckets. So if we have an issue or a crisis develop, we don't lose all of our revenue sources, or we have to go to one source at a time of crisis and have a large increase. So we're trying to be fair and move it along so that we are paying our fair share, all of us, in this portion of our budget. And so I think the research that Nick's done and the comments he made tonight, it's just like, we hired Datamax a couple years ago, not Datamax anymore, but the predecessor to them. They collect taxes for us that people don't pay. Why do we go with that? Well, because we had people that were doing business in Glasgow that weren't paying their fair share. And so, again, we're looking at all revenue sources. This is an increase from 2 to 5, and that's a large increase. But the dollar amount is not that significant. And again, I'm saying that not that significant. We'll see maybe a $200,000 increase, possibly a $200,000 increase, but it does impact this portion of our license and permits as a part of the general fund budget. So, again, we want to be fair with taxation. Everybody want to be fair, and we've got to look at it from time to time and make some tough calls today that will impact how we move forward as a city into the future. So, Nick, thank you.
Councilmember Nell, where did the 5% come from?
Well, I think the 5%, and I'll let Nick talk a little bit about it, is that's where we are at with all the other levels except for life and health. Okay? So we wanted to move up to where we were with the other portions of premium tax, and that's why we went to 5%, to keep it level across all portions of the premium tax that we're getting from insurance policies as a whole. Nick, you might want to clarify that if I didn't.
Basically, in 1966, when the first ordinance was established, the insurance premium fee was set at 5% for everything except life and health. Life and health were set at 2%. So this is just going back and saying nothing has been changed for 58 years, and basically just to bring that 2% up to where everything else is. That's where the 5% comes from.
Nick, as a licensed insurance agent in the state of Kentucky myself, the insurance companies aren't going to just eat this fee. It's going to be passed on by the consumer. I've wrote plenty of policies, and I can tell you that an individual policy, you can do the research yourself, for health is way more than having a group policy working for a big corporation. I feel like it's just a slap in the face to our small business owners and people trying to make it on their own without being a W-2 worker. You're right. I mean, 2% to 5%. I just think that it's it's just a slap in the face to small business owners, and I'm just not for this ordinance.
Other discussion? Ready to call the question?
Question.
I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Marion,
No.
Neal,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Trigg,
Yes.
Witcher. Benel,
Yes.
Gaunt,
Yes, ma'am.
Kirkpatrick,
No, ma'am.
Lowry,
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes, and the ordinance is approved. Let's move to new business. Rich?
The next item we have, Mayor, is a municipal order enacting and adopting the supplement to our Code of Ordinances. And let me just, for the minutes and so forth, explain that in years past, we have done this by ordinance, but in speaking with the League of Cities and with the company that prepares these supplements for us, that is not required by law. All we need is a municipal order, and in doing that, we save ourselves the publication fee as well. So we've decided to use a municipal order rather than an ordinance for these supplements. So in this year and future years, that's the mechanism that we'll be using. So this is a municipal order enacting and adopting the supplement to the 2024 S57 supplement to the Code of Ordinances in the City of Glasgow. That whereas American Legal Publishing Corporation of Cincinnati, Ohio has completed its 2024 S57 supplement to the city's Code of Ordinances, which supplement contains all ordinances of a general nature enacted since the prior supplement to the Code of Ordinances of this municipality. Whereas American Legal Publishing Corporation has recommended the revision or addition of certain sections to the Code of Ordinances which are based on or make references to sections of the Kentucky Revised Statutes. And whereas the Glasgow City Council intends to accept these updated sections in accordance with the changes of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, now therefore the City of Glasgow does hereby order that the 2024 S57 supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Glasgow, as submitted by American Legal Publishing Corporation of Cincinnati, as attached hereto as Exhibit A, is hereby adopted by reference as is specifically set out in its entirety. So ordered by the Council this March 11th, 2024.
All right, you have heard the reading of this proposed municipal order. I entertain a motion that we approve this order.
Motion, Norris.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. We are now to the point we can discuss this particular municipal order in detail if there are questions you want to ask. Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, and the order carries. In your packet that you got last Thursday, there was notification of a pending list of appointments per resolution number 2016-2341 for some municipal orders that will be approved at the next city council meeting, which will be on the 25th day of March. All right, that being said, under announcements, our next meeting is going to be on Monday, March the 25th at 6 o'clock here in the City Hall chambers. This is kind of a sportsy day because as we speak, there is a actual baseball game being played at Richardson Field. And I know that Mrs. Lowry over there, a proud mother who is here, even though, are you keeping up with the score over there, are you? No. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. And then, of course, we also have our basketball team going to tip off at 7:30 down at Diddle Arena in the regional tournament. So there's a whole lot happening that we got to split up and go get involved in. But at this point, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Hold on, Mayor.
Yes.
I have something to say. Speaking of the 25th, that starts spring cleanup week.
Uh-huh.
And we will, for the people that have trash day Monday, that looking
Right.
to have that out on Monday.
Right. Yes, there's going to be lots of good information out so people will know exactly what to get out when, and it's always a big year. And I appreciate you bringing that up so people can start ahead.
25th through the 29th, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, well, I think Congressman Norris, Councilman Norris wants to say something.
Just letting everybody know about the 28th Annual James Barton Memorial Golf Classic.
Yes.
Kiwanis, sponsored by Kiwanis, will be May 18th at Fox Hollow. If you let me know, I'll get you a team sheet of paper to sign up, or if you want to be a whole sponsorship. We
Very
do our
good.
Christmas shopping, scholarships, etc.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Councilman Kirkpatrick made a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, thank you very much.